His name is on the Stanley Cup 4 times, twice as a player, twice as a goaltending coach. And his name is also on the Conn Smythe Trophy. He's one of the last great stand-up goaltenders in the NHL. Bill Ranford has agreed to be my guest today.
Reluctantly.
This podcast reluctantly sponsored by homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals, and thompsonmortgages.com. They take care of the financials. You search for your perfect home. If you're searching for a home in the Edmonton area, please use both of these fine sponsors.
Reluctantly.
Hey, Terry, how
Billy
you
the
doing?
Kid. Oh man, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It's so great to see you. You still look like you did when you were playing.
Except for the gray hair.
Well, I suppose we all have a little bit of
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
it's funny. We kind of reconnected here just after a long, long period of time. And I was thinking back, the podcast that came out, my most recent one was with Kevin Carius from Global Sports and now Sports 1440. And we were talking about you and came to the realization it's 25 years now since you retired from the NHL.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's when you come on those big timelines and you start looking back, 30 plus years with the Oilers since I played there, and I've been with the Los Angeles Kings. It's going into my 20th season. It's just crazy, and you start looking back, and retired in 2000, and 25 years later, still in hockey. So it's been great.
Did you ever have a notion that there was going to be some sort of involvement in hockey after you were done playing professionally? Did you know that you were going to go into that? Was there coaching on the horizon, or was there, like a coaching, like a head coach sort of situation, or did you anticipate going into a goaltender coach situation, or was that something that was presented to you and you just thought, hey, well, let's see if this sticks?
I actually thought broadcasting would be the way I went at that time, and still to this day. There's a lot of goalies that get into broadcasting. I think because we look at the game kind of the same way as a broadcaster. We see the play coming to us. We see it that way. So when I first retired, I went to Quinnipiac through the Players Association and did the broadcasting seminar. And I think Glenn Anderson was there, a couple other NHL guys, and did that at Quinnipiac. And I thought that was the route I would go. Obviously, we went back to New Westminster, BC, and we're building a home. So the first year I was focused on that, but dabbled in it a little bit, and then I just kind of the goaltending coach thing kind of just fell in my lap a little bit. I was working with the Coquitlam Express at the time. I was a part owner with Darcy Rhoda, Kirk McLean, and Dave Lowry, and I was just kind of dabbling in it, just trying to help out. And then one day I got a phone call from an old teammate, Dean Chenouth, that was working with Seattle in the Western Hockey League. And that's where I started to kind of realize that this might be what I'm interested in. I worked with Seattle for 1 year, and then moved on to the Vancouver Giants, which was nice and local. So I could, quick little drive to the rink, and got part of it that way. And then I got the call from Mark Crawford when he took over the head coaching job with the Los Angeles Kings, and kind of been there ever since.
The Coquitlam team, do you still have a hand in that?
No, it's moved ownership a few times. We all the ex NHL guys just kind of donated their money there for a few years. It wasn't a real money making venture at all, but we thought it was something neat to do, and give back to the community a little bit. It's just a real hard business, when you're involved in it, and there's so many different teams around. The Vancouver Giants just kind of got up and rolling, and then you're going against Vancouver Canucks, and there's only so many dollars that you can go around. And I think that's where we struggled, was with the advertising dollar to really make a go of it.
Well, Coquitlam is like a tier 2. Like, was that like
Yeah.
a junior double B sort of team?
It was the BC Junior Hockey League,
Hmm.
and they're still, um, I don't know if you know the story behind it, but they parted ways with Hockey Canada and went out on their own, and they're still in the league. They went Coquitlam, Burnaby, tried it in Burnaby for a little bit, and then Coquitlam built a brand new rink, so they went back to Coquitlam, and they're still in the BC Hockey League, and I think they're still thriving and doing pretty well. But it's a tough hockey market when you're competing against so many different teams.
Does that include is it th weren't there some of the Alberta teams that ended up joining up with the
Yeah, exactly.
BCJHL?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah. You had, I think, 5 or 6 Alberta teams that joined up that left Hockey Canada, and now it's a big hot mess with the universities in the US opening up to anyone. So now everybody's kind of feeling their way out on how this is going to work over the next little while till everything settles in.
You said when you retired, you and Kelly built a home in New Westminster. Is that the place that you're still living in now?
No, we sold it about 7 years ago and kind of moved across from one side of Queen's Park to the other side and went into a condo. And at one point, we had both girls in the building with us. Actually, our youngest, Tristan, she bought first. And then, she was 18 or 19 and put a deposit on a place. And then we went in there. And then there was a point where all three of us we were on three different floors and dogs, and it was great. It was really great for Kelly because at that time I was obviously in LA working full time. So, the girls could just take an elevator ride up to the top and visit their mom, and dogs went for walks together. So it was pretty cool.
How old are the girls now, Cassidy and Tristan?
Cassidy, 32. They're 32 and 30, I think now. Yeah. So that's yeah, they're grown. They're got their own homes, and Cassidy has two kids, Lily and Rory, the youngest, and then Tristan has a girl, Kamea. So they're like three and a half, 1.5, or actually they're getting close to 4 and 2, and then little Rory is 10 months old. So we're having a blast with the three grandchildren.
And of course, it's great because they're not yours. Here you go, mom.
You can give them back at the end of the day. No, we spend a lot of time with them. Right now, both girls are here and all three grandchildren. Both boys or they're men. Both guys are back in New Westminster working. So one's in finance, the other one's a firefighter. So they try and pick their spots when they can get away. And Christmas is a big time that we come here. They had to pass on this one, and so we've got our hands full, but it's fun.
And going on vacation without the girls. I mean, obviously, it's been happening for a while if they're into their 30s and stuff, but that was probably a big change, especially considering what you've been doing, you and Kelly and the kids, and a lot of times, with trades here and there and
Yeah.
everywhere, there's a lot of times where uh, a wife of a professional hockey player and the kids will go, but then there's other times where the wife and the kids will stay because of the roots that are already set there, and then, you're kinda out there twisting in the wind. Was there a lot of that you guys had to deal with, you and Kelly?
Well, as a player, it only happened once when I got traded from Tampa to Detroit. School was finishing up, so the girls stayed in Tampa, and I went on to Detroit, but it was only for a few months. But the tough part was coaching in LA. I think Kelly and I were, and the girls, we were apart for about 12 straight years full time. So I'd see the girls any trip that we went into Vancouver, Christmas for a couple of days, and then All-Star break. And then I'd see Kelly would try and get in because she was a full-time teacher at the time while raising our girls, and she would try and get in the odd, probably maybe once a month if we were lucky. So we did that for almost 12 years. So I told the girls once they started having the grandbabies that I would try and change my role, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that with LA and move into a little bit of a director of goaltending, more of a management role where I can work from anywhere. I can work from a computer, so it's worked out well.
Is that right? Okay, I was gonna ask you about that because there's a lot of teams that are still kinda old school about that, but then there's also the progression with this goaltending department in
Yes.
NHL teams, and that seems to be what you're the head of with LA?
Yeah, I mean, it usually comes about in the playoff time when everybody talks about goaltending the most and how important it is. And I think in this new cap era, we're learning that you have to build from within. So you've got to develop your own guys. So more and more teams are putting departments together. We've been very fortunate under Dean Lombardi and then Rob Blake and now Kenny Holland that have allowed us to build this goaltending department that allows us to have a goalie coach in NHL, American Hockey League, and then kind of a three-headed monster where our young guy does development, prospects, and then the draft eligible guys. So we're very fortunate. And then I oversee all that, and then I do scouting also. I'll go out 1 week out of the month and scout the NHL free agents. So it's busy, but it allows me to work from home, which is amazing.
There's slim pickings for goalie free agents right now.
Yeah, this is the third year that I've been involved with it heavily, and really the names haven't changed that much. There's a group of 10 to 15, and it's the same 10 to 15 each year, it seems. Yeah, so it's slim pickings, and so I think that's why more and more teams are putting these goaltending departments together, just to try and build up their goalie chains and try and figure a way out that if you can build one from within. We were spoiled in Los Angeles. We had Jonathan Quick for almost 15 years, and when you have somebody like that, you're never having to think about it. And after we traded him away, we've still trying to find our way and find somebody that's going to work. And we've got a couple of young guys coming up the chain, and we've had guys that have done a really good job filling in for us.
You were goalie coach for part of the Jonathan Quick era as well, were you not?
The whole era, his whole
Yeah.
era, I was the goalie coach. Yeah, yeah,
So if you have an elite goalie like, and I'm obviously you're a Stanley Cup winner, you know what it takes, you know you've been there, done that sort of thing. How do you and I guess the same question could be asked of Chris Knobloch or anybody who's ever coached Connor McDavid. How do you coach that guy, that talent? How do you is it more mental than physical? Is it
yeah.
process?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, uh, Jonathan was a real athlete when we got him. So he was kind of the opposite, where had to teach a little bit more technical early on. And then he became, the Jonathan Quick of two Stanley Cups, Conn Smythe. And then after that kind of point, they're still constantly trying to tweak his game a little bit. And then, especially as he got older, it became the maintenance aspect of it, making sure that his body stayed healthy. That we could, continue to play him, the 50 plus games a year. And, he had a few injuries along the way, but, I think a lot of that was just the aggressive style of play that the probably the force that he put on the different parts of his body to be the competitive guy that he was.
As a goalie coach for guys in that era, the Jonathan Quick era, and even as a director of goaltending for the Los Angeles Kings now, but I guess more specifically as goalie coach, how do you, as the goaltender and the style that you played with, coach a guy like Jonathan Quick or anybody who's goaltending right now? Because the styles are so different
Yeah.
from when you played, like you and Brodeur and, well, who's it? Hasek, I guess, was a he was a flop goalie
Yeah.
more
He
than
was
a
a little bit,
stand-up goalie,
a little bit
but
all over the place, but I
you
think
were
that
a hotel you not a hotel, you were a stand-up, goaltender, and now all these guys have, the slide back and forth with the lateral movement and the different pads and all of the things that go. I was looking at your old pads, and I thought, "Holy horsehair."
yeah, exactly, exactly. I think my philosophy has always been kind of the little bit of a hybrid, that I always felt it was important that, especially with Jonathan, because he wasn't a 6'2" to 6'5" goalie. He was a smaller goalie. We talked about, a little bit of a hybrid of trying to hold his feet as long as he can. And I think you're starting to see the stand up style, not quote unquote 100% stand up, but there's a lot of talk of going back to that hybrid of not constantly going down, trying to hold your edges a little bit longer, just because the players are so good. There's everybody's scouting the goalies, just the amount of video that's available and the predictability that has happened with this butterfly style, that I think goalie coaches are starting to trend back towards having goalies holding their feet, being a little bit more stand up, just so that they're not as predictable in what they do.
How and you talked about the tape that is available to watch goaltenders, and how paramount is it for all of these teams? Like, is it something the forwards will study over and over and over again and go in with an absolute, game plan if we're going high blocker or we're going 7-hole or 5-hole or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that what it comes down
Not
to?
I don't think a lot of the players study it. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot. They rely on the goalie coaches. So my one of the things I did, my job was to obviously scout the goalie and then present a scouting report. And I used to just walk around the dressing room before a game. And if the guys wanted to listen in, I just kind of give them some cues of what I saw, some trends in the last, say, couple of weeks that I saw against a particular goalie. And then there was, a few guys like Kopitar would only want 1 or 2 points. He wouldn't want a big elaborate thing, just whatever he was feeling. What does he do on this? What does he do on that? And then I just walk around the room. And then obviously there was, our video guy would run a roll of, say, the last 20, 30 goals against, and then the shootout scenarios against the particular goalie. And they just roll that on the TV. The guys are sitting around the room. It's there. They can watch it while they're getting dressed before they go out. Those are the kind of things that we would do. But the big thing for me, the guys that were really into the scoring, I just give them my kind of 2 cents on what I thought, and if they ever got the opportunity and they were able to execute it and had success, they were happy.
Reluctantly.
This podcast is reluctantly sponsored by the real estate team of homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals. If you are buying or selling in the Edmonton region, Shauna and Bonnie can handle everything with strong industry connections to mortgage brokers, home inspectors, lawyers, and contractors to support every step of the process. The market is very active right now. We recently listed our home again, and it went from MLS to closing conditions in 8 days. Now, of course, results may vary from property to property, but Shauna and Bonnie have been our trusted real estate advisors through buying and selling no less than 7 properties. I've recommended them to many friends who want real, relatable people with a personalized, hands-on approach. New home, investment, recreational, even commercial properties. Homegirls.ca is the website. Email info is right there. And the phone number is 780-517-HOME.
Reluctantly.
We had the fortunate opportunity to see you play for much of the 90s, starting back in the 80s, I guess, and then much of the 90s here in Edmonton. But there was, the inevitable happens with any player. I mean, hell, it happened to Wayne Gretzky. He started bouncing around to St. Louis, New York, Los Angeles, all over the place. And you're no different. Edmonton, well, I guess first Boston. You were drafted by Boston, then Edmonton, Washington, Tampa Bay, Detroit, and then back to Edmonton to finish things out in the year 2000. What and and being now employed by the Los Angeles Kings, there's obviously, you're rooting for the Kings. That's where your bread and
Yeah,
butter is right
yeah.
now.
Well, yeah, I'm going into year 20, so it's tough. I've got that Oiler blood in me, and now I've got that Kings blood in me. So and it's not hard to figure out that the last 4 years we've gone up again against Edmonton and lost, and that's been very frustrating for our group. But they've been semifinal and back-to-back finals, so it's you're going up against one of the best, and we're facing them in the first round each year. And I think that's the frustrating part about the new process of the playoffs. That there's a lot of times there's good 3 to 5 really good teams getting eliminated in the first round, and they're not upsets. And when it used to be the 1 through 8, it was usually an upset that somebody got bumped. But more times than not, those teams were getting through the first round, and then it was getting down to the nitty gritty when second, third, fourth round. Now you're seeing all these great teams getting bumped out in that first round. And I think there's been talk about it. I don't know if they'll switch back, but I know there's been a lot of discussion at GM meetings and stuff where it's frustrating when you're getting really good teams that are getting knocked off in that first round.
So is that the guarded Bill Ranford speak as the director of goaltending for the Los Angeles Kings, or is that the two guys hanging out talking? Like, would you rather just see the one play 8, 2 play 7?
Well, it's kind of a two-headed monster. Like I played in the era with less teams, and we did 1 through 8, and you had those rivalries with Winnipeg, rivalries with Calgary, and you weren't getting that. So they thought they'd go to the divisional stuff, and it's been great. There's been some great rivalries, but on the flip side, a lot of good teams are getting eliminated in that first round. So it's really, however you want to look at it, they both seem to work. It's just whatever side of the coin and you're on, and Los Angeles has been on the bad side of the coin the last 4 years. So it's tough. But no different when LA went on their runs. I'm sure, we bumped out Vancouver as a top team a couple of times, and they probably didn't like that either. So it's one of those things.
I think the way that the regular season is set up these days too, I think Edmonton and Calgary only played each other 3 times. There was a time where there 6 or 8 games
Yeah,
against each
yeah,
other in your same division?
yeah. I think you play 3 or 4, and then I can't even remember what it is. It might be 3, and then the next year you play 4. It flip flops because the uneven numbers. So, yeah, like, I mean, I can remember a couple of years ago, I think we played, Edmonton early, and then we played them 2 or 3 times late in the season, and then went in the playoffs. But when we played them late in the season, we hadn't seen them for like 4 or 5 months, and that's the thing that's crazy. There's times where you could go 4 or 5 months without seeing your quote unquote division rival because of the way the schedule spread out.
And then back in the day when you like you saw enough of Jim Poplinski's ass, you didn't wanna ever see it
Yeah.
again.
I mean, we used to. I think the thing back at, because you played the teams more often, they would do it maybe once or twice a year, but when you had those back to back against Calgary, my goodness, like, it was just the talk of the town for, weeks leading up to it, because that's all, that's all everybody wanted to talk about, and you'd play one in Edmonton and one in Calgary, and it was just a crazy couple of games because of the lead up towards it.
Talking with Kevin Lowe when I had him on the podcast, he said that if he was walking down the street and he saw somebody from the Calgary Flames, they'd cross the street so they didn't have to talk to him or anything like that.
No, it is, you know what? It is nuts because I was the same way. And then when I retired in 2000, I did some alumni events with a gentleman by the name of Robin Wist that now heads up the Vancouver Canucks alumni. And we did these charitable games, and a lot of the players were from Vancouver and Calgary. And it was the most bizarre thing, especially the Calgary guys. And all of a sudden, I'm playing on a team with Poplinski and Jamie McCowan and guys like that, and I'm like Joel Otto, and I'm like, these guys are really nice guys. And when we played, I was the same way. I would probably cross the street. Lanny McDonald obviously only caught Lanny his last few years, but one of the nicest gentlemen in hockey, and just, I mean, Tim Hunter, he coached me at the tail end of my career. And, I ran into him last year in Arizona, and it's crazy. These guys are just unbelievable people that we wanted nothing, and I mean nothing, to do with them in the heyday with the Battle of Alberta. Like Kevin said, you would cross the street or you do anything not to make eye contact with them. Just, it was that heated and that ugly back at that time.
I remember when talking to Kevin because we referenced Ray Bork for some reason, and of course he didn't win the Stanley Cup for the longest time in Boston, but there was always that sort of sentimental sort of thing where even if you weren't a Bruins fan, you were thinking, "Geez, it'd sure be nice if Bork won a Stanley Cup before he retired." And then, of course, he won with Colorado. And I said to Kevin, I said, "Did you have a little bit of a soft feeling about like a sentimental thing, like, hey, good for him?" And Kevin goes, "Nope."
Absolutely not. No.
Who
I
gives
mean,
a shit?
like, well, it's not who gives a shit. You know what? It is so hard to win. And, when you look at it, the great Edmonton teams, fortunate, the great Islander teams, and kind of Florida is heading into that route. Chicago. These dynasties are hard. They don't happen very often. And, I've been fortunate. I was, 15-year pro, won twice as a player. I've now been in coaching for, involved in LA for going into year 20 twice. It's not easy to do. So no, you don't look at it that way. It's like, oh, well, it's hard. Like as soon as anytime my team is in the playoffs, when you lose out, you don't want anybody to win. Like everybody's like, who are you cheering for? I'm like, nobody. I cheer for friends, but I don't cheer for a team because my team didn't win. And that's why, teams are going to the finals. They're like, oh, who are you cheering for? Nobody, because I didn't win it. That's the way we were born and bred that if you don't win it, you didn't want anybody to win it, and it's just the way we grew up.
When you won as a goaltending coach the 2 years in the Los Angeles Kings, obviously everybody, all the coaching staff and everybody after the game is over, the, deciding game, you get to hoist the cup and whatnot with all the players on the ice. You've been there for both situations, player and coach, goaltending coach. When it all kind of settled down and everything, did you go back to look at and find your name as a player too? Like
Oh,
you go,
absolutely. Well, the thing that is really cool now, as you know, is you get a day with the cup, and that's where you go in there and look for your name. But the one for me was the Conn Smythe. Until Jonathan won it in L.A., I'd never seen my name on it because when you win it, your name's not on it yet. So that was one of the neatest things. And then got to tell you a story when Jonathan won in Vegas, his his son, who is a young goalie, Jonathan and I are on the same side of the Conn Smythe, and my name is either just below or just above his, probably below. And I get a video from his son where Jonathan took a video of his son looking at the Conn Smythe, looking at his dad's name and then my name. And in the video is like, I don't want to say it, but he basically says, "Frickin' A, Billy," on the video. And I get this video from Jonathan as Vegas is celebrating, and his son is looking at the Conn Smythe trophy, seeing both our names, and that was really cool. That was a cool moment. But yeah, I'd never seen my name on it until he won it.
the Conn Smythe Trophy that year, 90, when the Oilers won the Stanley Cup, that was the Winnipeg series that everybody figured was gonna go haywire, and then you ended up standing on your head and was that a 5-game series?
No, 7.
Oh, it was 7? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we were down 3 games. If it was a 5-game series, we would have been out. We
That's
were
right.
down. We were down 3 games to 1 and came back. Yeah, we did the reverse sweep. We were down 3-1 and came back and won 3 straight. Yeah.
Yeah. The first year that you were a part of the team where the Oilers won the Stanley Cup, 19
Yes.
so you get your name on the Stanley Cu I was always wondered, do you have to play in the playoffs to get your name on? Or, like, how does that work if there's because there's obviously scratches, and then, then there's Peter Pocklington's dad and other goofy stuff that happens with getting a name on the Stanley Cup. So, but Furzy wa Coco was the, number 1 guy at that point, was he not?
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to be on the roster, I think, for 60 games or on the roster for the playoffs. And then you have to be another way is if you play in a game in the Stanley Cup final. So
In the
you have
final
guys
6.
that come out of junior, don't play, a bunch of injuries happen, and then play in the Stanley Cup final, get their name on the cup if the team chooses to do so. So there's a couple of different scenarios. So because I was on the roster for the full Stanley Cup, you get your name. But I know there was some guys that year in '88 that didn't get their name on because they didn't qualify, and that's tough.
Well, it's tough. Yes, it is, and you talk about how difficult it is to win that trophy.
Yeah,
It is, well documented as the hardest trophy in sport to win. But even if you look at it from just, say, your specific situation as the
yeah,
backup goaltender through,
yeah.
the entire regular season and then all through the playoffs, you didn't just sit on your ass through
No, No,
through any
exactly.
of it. There was practicing, there's still all the travel, there's still all of the things. You have to be prepared because if something happens, you gotta be ready to go, and you have to have that level right away, right?
Yeah. And the thing about when you're part of that, going through that experience, I think that helped me a lot for the 1990 run, because what I learned in 88 was about the highs and lows, and not getting too caught up in the highs and not getting too caught up in the lows. You want to try to stay kind of even keel, because when the game's over, win or lose, you've got the next one to play until you're eliminated. So you got to basically, yeah, the game's over, and then start regrouping for the next one. And it's hard. It's a mental grind. You talk about, I think, because we did that against San Jose where we reverse sweeped, and it's tough when your team's not playing well. As a coaching staff, you're digging for answers, and one of the neatest things, I've told the story many times, but after that disastrous game one against Winnipeg, where I did not play well at all, John Muckler and the coaching staff came up with this idea. And the next day, part of the video session, they basically showed a bunch of clips from me that year, because I played, I think, 60 some, close to 60 games that year, I believe, because Furzy was out. Just showed me making saves and just kind of a little bit of a pump up video, and basically said, "You're our guy. Win or lose, we're sticking with you." And that's where I really had to, from a mental standpoint, go, "Okay, I got this. I gotta turn this around." So that was a big moment for me. Just the support of the coaching staff and the teammates rallying around me.
Everybody talks about playing through the Stanley Cup playoffs and the finals, especially because you've played yourself through and won 3 rounds, so you're beaten up, beaten to hell, and exhausted mentally, physically. You're, working on broken wings and chipped teeth and
Yeah.
everything in between. How much do you remember from your playing days, as far as the walking wounded and everybody struggling through to get that 16th win?
Oh, I mean, the 1 year, Kevin, I think it was in 90. I can't remember 88 or 90. I believe it was 90, where I think in the first round he broke his ribs, and was getting injected for a couple of rounds till they healed. He's playing with broken ribs. The guys with fractured hands or fingers, that guys are just whatever it took. When you're in the lineup, you never wanted to be out of the lineup, because back then it was different. It was hard to get in the lineup. So once you're in, you never wanted to leave it. So guys would do anything to play, and really that's what it's about. The team that can stay the healthiest the longest usually is most times the most successful. And it's a long, and I think that's why it's the hardest trophy in sport to win, because it's a 2.5 month process. I mean, when we played in our time, it wasn't around TV schedules. You played every second night. You go 7 games, you travel to the next city, and 2 days later you're starting up. It's changed a lot now. It's more set up to the TV. You know, third round ended, the teams had, 3 or 4 days to recover before they started up again. We flew from in 90, we flew from Chicago into Boston, didn't even go back to Edmonton, had media day, started up 2 days later, and boom, we're going. So it's changed a lot. And so in our time, there was very little time for recovery for injuries. You're basically playing every second night.
When did the injury thing really start to catch up to you? I know you had ankle problems and cortisone shots and all kinds of stuff going on, and probably way too many of them for anybody's good. But
Well, my toughest time was 90, was leading up to the playoffs. I had a really bad high ankle sprain, and that's the first time that I had a cortisone injection. We tried to play through it with taping and just anti-inflammatories, and it just wasn't getting better. And that's when I got my first introduction to cortisone. And it's there. The good part is you feel like Superman 2 days later. The bad part is the long-term effects. It breaks down bone, muscle, whatever it does. So still to this day, anytime I catch a rut or drag my right foot, I get a good tweak. But it also allowed me to, have the opportunity to win that second Stanley Cup and be a big part of it. And then the only other thing I had, a little bit of back and shoulder stuff. When I was Washington, I had a cyst on my shoulder that basically I had to retrain my arm how to work again after I had the cyst removed. It was all just little tiny ones. I was fortunate. I never had any knee or back surgeries throughout my career. The only major surgery I had was on a shoulder, and it was on a healthy shoulder because they were worried about the cyst coming back. So I was quite fortunate in the long run, but it was just the little tiny ones that would knock you out for 10, 15 games. And so after 15 years of playing, one thing that part of my reasoning for retiring at the time I did was I wanted to walk away from the game and not crawl away from it.
Well, yeah, and then you look at it now, you've got grandkids under the age of 6, and you wanna be able to go, "Hey, hey,"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
exactly.
sort of thing.
You pay for it, like, I had back surgery as a coach later on, probably from the wear and tear and the way I played. And the worst concussion I had was filming the movie Miracle, so it was the kind of post hockey stuff that happened. Took a knee to the head filming that. It's one of those things. And concussions weren't looked at the same way. I was blown away when, listening to Scott Thornton's aspect of what he dealt with. And we were dumb back then. We just wanted back. We didn't want to lose our spots. I can remember 2 or 3 times, Kelly driving me home, and the next day I'm like, I got to get back on the ice. And just there wasn't the same approach, and it was frowned upon. You were like thought of as weak if you had a concussion and weren't coming back right away. And I think the NHL and the NHLPA has done a really good job of changing that now it's serious, and it's players have to be cleared medically now before they get back on the ice. And I think that's important, because the CTE that everybody talks about, I've lost a lot of good friends over the years due to it. The other aspect of things, I think the awareness of mental health with men especially, has really starting to come to the forefront. It's a reality. It's a reality, and too many athletes, we're too tough. We don't have mental issues, but we do. Mental health is real, and more teams are hiring people to help players get through those times.
You referenced the Scott Thornton conversation about I'm just looking on my phone, going back to Thorny's, the episode that we did, trying to remember the name of the helmet.
Right? Yeah, that they've come up with. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't remember the name either.
Valor Hockey, there you go. And thank you for listening. You said, just before we started recording this that you and Kelly were driving up to Tofino listening to the podcast with Scott Thornton, who was a one-time Edmonton Oiler. And yeah, the Valor Hockey, with the development of the helmets that they're putting together for that, I asked him if there's going to be something that ends up being implemented from a safety point of view in NHL players. Is somebody going to step up and end up being an endorsement thing for that, or if it's going to be something that is a groundswell for the PWHL or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. Well, I know one thing, our head equipment guy in LA, Darren Granger, he's been around a long time, is very conscious of the development of the hockey helmet, and more companies are trying to create safer and safer helmets for the players. And there's a, the we used to have, small, medium, large, extra large, and you squish your head into whichever one fit the best. Now these companies have just so many more options. Obviously, there's so many more companies and so many more options. And so the helmets are, number one, are just fitting better. And when they fit better, you're going to be safer. And the high density foam that's available now for protection, you're seeing it in football, just the whole concepts change. You're seeing in football now that the players they look goofy, but they're practicing with those extra
Yeah,
padding on the helmets in
yeah.
training camps and practice sessions. It's just reality. It's scary how much when you have two individuals crashing together at a very high speed, something's got to give, and a lot of times it's the rattling around of your brain. So the league and the players association are working hard to convince the players to be as safe as possible and as protected as possible.
Reluctantly.
This podcast reluctantly sponsored by thompsonmortgages.com. Not limited to just mortgages. They also provide insurance. Almost any service associated with a home or building purchase can be done in-house. And for anything beyond that, they have an extensive network of professionals at their fingertips. Consolidations, loans, mortgages, legal services, accounting services, financial planning, insurance. They are your one-stop shop. How do I know this? Well, Mike at thompsonmortgages.com has helped us out with our mortgages for the last few real estate transactions that we have made. You can be confident that they will work hard to ensure all your mortgage and insurance goals are fulfilled. Check them out for yourself. thompsonmortgages.com.
Reluctantly.
When you played for the Edmonton Oilers and won a Stanley Cup in 1988 and then again in 1990, and then got traded, you went to Washington,
I
Tampa
went to
Bay,
Boston.
Detroit.
I actually went back to Boston first.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Well, you were drafted by Boston, then came to Edmonton, then back to Boston.
Correct. And then I went
Okay.
to Washington. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So the Boston, Washington, Tampa Bay, Detroit, that those teams didn't have the same level of success that you achieved in those 2 years, 88 and 90 with the Edmonton Oilers. Do you end up with a stronger bond to the guys on the team because of that long fight and then realization of the championship? Or was it like, do you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, there's those Stanley Cup teams, you're always going to have a bond. I went to a Stanley Cup final with Washington. Ole Kolzig was the goalie. There's always going to be a special bond with that group of guys when you go through the battle for that 2.5 months. The team in Detroit, when I got traded there at the deadline, that was a team that you know had the great players, the Yzermans, the Fedorovs, that had won. That was one of the older teams that I played on. So that was each team has a different experience. Tampa Bay was a big hot mess, probably the 1 year of hockey that I didn't enjoy. But I really can't say there was many times where I didn't enjoy the team that I went to. Even my time in Boston when I went back there, it was just a great group of guys, and you have bonds for life. There was 4 or 5 guys at the Rick Tocchet, the Dean Chenoweth, Craig Billington, John Roloff. We went out for dinner almost after every single game, and so I'll have a relationship with those guys for life.
When you were in Edmonton, your mom and dad lived in Red Deer.
Still do, yeah. They're still
Oh,
there.
they're still
Yeah,
there?
still in Red Deer. Yeah, yeah, they're still there. Yeah,
I remember your mom and dad coming up and seeing them in the old Coliseum. Your dad, he was so funny, such a great sense of humor. It's great to hear that they're still with you.
yeah, yeah. They're both in Red Deer. My twin sister is still in Stettler, and then my oldest sister is still in Edmonton. Yeah, she's still there. Yeah, so they're all in Alberta.
You and I share a birthday. You're 2 years younger than I am, but
Yeah,
we share a birthday.
yeah.
And
That's why we always remembered each other, because we shared the same birthday.
and it was 30 years ago that we celebrated our birthdays together. Your 28th and my 30th. And it was at the bar called Bill Ranford's Bar on
Yeah,
Calgary Trail southbound here in Edmonton. Yeah, just north of the Global ITV studios there, right? But across from Weber Motors or whatever.
yeah. It was, I
Close
think,
it down.
called Bill Rant Season Pass or whatever. But I think was that the time that we celebrated was it during the lockout that we did that, or was it during the season? Trying to think.
Would have been 1980, no, 1994. So, yeah, was there a lockout season 94?
I can't even remember.
You know, neither can I. And I barely remember that night too. We were at your bar. There was a bunch of players with us. I was there with my wife, Jody.
Yeah.
She was driving her little orange Toyota Tercel. And for some reason, I got into a conversation with Kelly Bookber and I started poking him in the shoulder. I'm poking him, poking him in the shoulder. He goes, "You poke me one more time and you're going to be sorry." And I poked him one more time. He picked me up, turned me upside down, and shook all the change out of my pocket. It wasn't long after that that obviously everybody was, having a good time and
Yeah.
stuff, but, Jody decided to take me home. I ended up puking all over the side of her car on the way home. It was a very memorable night.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing about Edmonton at that time is we did things together. We had a lot. We ended up meeting a lot of good people. Obviously, yourself and Chris LaChance that was involved with the different restaurants and bars. We followed him around everywhere. It was a great city. It's still a great city, but at that time it was a great city to play in for us as players, and we got to meet a lot of good people like yourself and Chris and many others, and I think that's what made the city so special.
I think the players too at that time, all through the 90s, there was after that 1990 Stanley Cup, there was obviously a little bit of a downtrend as far as the success of the team was concerned. But a lot of the players were like so personable, so like just working man that they fit so well into Edmonton. No, there wasn't a whole bunch of Stanley Cups or anything like that, but the personnel on the team were so approachable and so immersed in the community. It was great. And I remember hanging out with, like with Whitey and Pierce and Luke Richardson and Kelly and, during the lockouts playing shinny with so many of the players and then the other players who were from here that would come in from other teams and the friendships that were developed through then. I remember, as a matter of fact, in 1994, you went to the World Championships
Yes, correct.
and won and got MVP, by the way. Which brings me to another thing. You got Conn Smythe Stanley Cup MVP. You got World Championship MVP, and I think was it World Cup MVP
Canada
as
Cup.
well?
Canada Cup
Canada. Yeah, you're the only goaltender who's ever done that.
only player.
Only player. Okay, sure. Only player that's ever done that. Which is phenomenal. But I remember in 1994, you don't make the playoffs, so you end up going to the World Championships. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
generally how it worked?
Yeah.
So I think you and Luke Richardson, and I'm not sure who else from the Oilers went, but playing in that final game and the shootout against, was it
Buckner was
Finland?
there. Kelly Buckberger was there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on the phone with Stephanie Richardson when the shootout was happening and we were on the phone together watching the game and obviously her husband Luke is there and we're watching and then we watch and we both went bananas when you made that save and I've got it actually on a screenshot right on my computer right now. You made the save in that last shootout attempt and then jumped up in the air so many times that's it just emblazoned into my mind so unbelievably. But yeah, the
Well,
connection.
Stephanie wasn't nervous because she knew Luke wasn't going to be shooting.
Yeah, if I don't know who was coaching at the time, but if they would have put Luke in the shootout, that would have been as egregious as not putting Gretzky in the shootout that one
Yeah.
famous time.
Yeah. No,
But
absolutely.
yeah, but the connection to the team was so great, and I do remember one other instance. I was working at the Bear at the time. We were trying to raise money for the Bear Children's Fund, and they had this thing called Dare Tear. So listeners would call into the email or whatever, the radio station and make suggestions of I do things in order to, do this crazy promotion. So I had to pretend that I was a prostitute out in the street in front of the Bear Studios at the old CFRN TV building. I walked on hot coals at a Trappers game, and then somebody came up with the bright idea of me wearing a medieval suit of armor and standing on a driving range at Golden West Golf Course, which is no longer here. So I did that, and I stood at the 100-yard mark, and nobody hit me. A whole bunch of people paid, I think, 50 cents or a buck a ball to hit balls at me on the driving range.
And nobody hit you.
Nobody hit me. So somebody says, "Well, why don't you move into the 50-yard marker?" Okay, great idea. So I got this medieval suit of armor all on me, and I'm standing at the 50-yard marker. There were only two places because, of course, you know, man, I'm 6'5", and I was whatever, 185 pounds or whatever. There were two places that were not covered by the medieval suit of armor. One was my ankle
Yeah.
because the suit wasn't long enough, and the other was my
Your
neck.
throat. Yeah.
And I got hit, and I saw the guy hit. He used driver. I saw the guy hit, and it was a low riser, just came up like that and caught me. And I just went to try and deflect it with my chest, and it caught me right in the neck. So I got a driver of a golf ball in the neck from 50 yards. I went to the hockey game that night, and after the game, I got into the dressing room and I was sitting there talking with you, and you said, "Jesus, what happened to your neck?" And I told you, you said, "Are you fucking crazy?" And I looked at you, I thought, "You're standing in front of 100-mile-an-hour hockey shots, 30, 35 times a night. You think
Yeah.
I'm crazy?" So I'll never forget that.
Yeah. It's funny, like, still to this day, I won't stand behind a net. It's the most bizarre thing. If I'm standing behind the net and I'm not in it, I'm like, "Oh my god, those pucks are coming fast." But then move me 6 feet closer with equipment on, and I don't even think about it. It's the most bizarre thing. Like, when you hear it hit the glass and stuff, I'm like, "Oh, that," but then you get in that mode where I put the equipment on and I don't even think about it. It's bizarre. Still to
It
this day, I won't stand behind a net.
Well, I don't blame you. How many times have we seen guys in the warm up, you just
Yeah.
standing where you're standing off in the corner and then all of a sudden a puck comes off because every one of those guys is shooting for the crossbar. They're not shooting to just put it in the net. They're trying to pick a corner. They end up, being off by an inch and a half and then it deflects off into the quarter or
Yeah, off your head.
cut somebody who's got a no
Yeah,
helmet on because they're taking pictures for hockey cards.
exactly. Well,
Do you s
you say about the great players and stuff and that were in Edmonton, a lot of that credit has to go to, the Glenn Sather philosophy. That's the one thing that when I got traded there, Glenn talked about you're going to be part of the community. Right off the bat, I got involved with whoever left at that particular time was part of the Canadian Cancer Society. So that's the role I took on. Just about every player was part of some sort of charitable group. We were very involved in the community, and that's something that Glenn and Sather thought was very important. And so I think, a lot of as tough a customer as Slats was over the years and probably pissed off a lot of people, that's the one thing that, was really important to him. Once an Oiler, always a Oiler is, it's just that's what we were. And I think that was something that Glenn created and felt was important.
So now, as director of goaltending for the Los Angeles Kings, you look at going into your next season with that starting up, and I'm sure you're going to be doing preparations in August, September, and getting ready for the 2025-26 season. Is that another situation where you go down there and you spend all your time there and Kelly's at home, or
No, no, I'm now like I'll go in for training camp, just to be basically I go more so in for rookie camp with the young guys, and then I'll stay for a little bit of a main camp, and then I'm out of there. Then I basically pass it on to Mike Buckley, who's our NHL goalie coach, and Adam Brown that works with our American Hockey League
okay?
team.
I mean, I know you said earlier that you can do your job pretty
Yeah,
much from
no,
anywhere.
no, that's really my only responsibility in training camp, just to go down there, make sure that we're ready and raring to go. And usually we'll have some, management meetings to, kind of go over what we want to get accomplished during the season. But no, that's the nice part of my role. I'll go in for that, and then I'm into the scouting and working from home aspect of things. And anytime that any special projects that come up with that Kenny Holland wants me to do, that's kind of what my role is.
How crazy is that Ken Holland is now the GM, just coming off of Edmonton, now he's down in Los Angeles. It makes me wonder what's gonna happen now, Oilers in Los Angeles meet in a playoffs again, or, even through the regular season, depending on what he builds down there. I thought he said he was done. He wasn't supposed to be
Yeah,
going.
no, he's you know what? He traded for me, when I went to Detroit, so, we have the little bit of a relationship there, and then all the years, in that he was in Edmonton, morning skates, he would come down and sit beside me. He's just, he's hockey through and through. Like, he's just an incredible human being, and, just has a passion for it, and, we're excited to see where he can take the team, and, um yeah, like he understands what it takes to win. He did it in Detroit and it was very successful, obviously in Edmonton. So the team's hoping that he can bring some of that success to LA.
Do you have any aspirations of moving, up in the office to assistant GM, coach, anything, something like that?
No, I think I miss so much of my kids' lives playing and coaching. I've just this new role gives me the opportunity to spend some time with my girls and the three grandchildren, and I think that's really where my focus is. I look at how many friends I have lost over the last 5 years, 5, 10 years that I either played with or played against. And, at some point in your lifetime, you have to finally put your family first. And that's kind of where I'm at, where the family, it's important to me. Really, it's family's always been important, but now it's it used to be hockey first, family second, and now it's kind of flip flopped. And the hockey side is still a big part of my life, and you have to make time for it because that's what I love. But my wife and kids and grandkids, they take a front seat now.
One other question, and I'm not sure if it's ever been a consideration, a conversation, or anything like that, but I've talked about it for years, and it's the Hockey Hall of Fame. Has there ever been a knock on the door, or any sort of hint that it might be
Yeah, I,
coming?
I, you know what? I really don't put a lot into it. Obviously, being the only player to win the MVP in the three events is something pretty special that puts me in a layer by myself. But there's so many great players, and if it ever happens, it would be a huge honor. But it doesn't define me. What defines me is basically being able to play the 15 years that I played, and the big thing for me was respect, and I think I had a lot of respect from not only my teammates but the players that I played with, and that's probably the most important thing for me. I have no regrets about my career. I was so fortunate to play in some great cities, play with some great people, and I have zero regret about my career. It's I'm very fortunate and privileged to be able to do what I did for as long as I did.
Well, I wish you many, many years of happiness with the grandkids, with your girls, and, of course, with Kelly doing whatever you wanna do,
Yep.
going wherever you wanna go, whether it's just hanging out at the condo in New Westminster or
Yep.
traveling the world
Exactly.
or whatever.
Yeah.
More trips to Tofino. Did you stay up in Tofino, or did you stay in Ucluelet,
We
or
went
what?
both, but we're in Yuki for most of the time, but we e-biked into Tofino, got on bikes and went in there, but we've done both. Obviously, we knew about Tofino, but during COVID, because all you could do was vacations within your province, and we were going crazy, and that's how we kind of got addicted to that, to the two little towns there. It's a lot of fun just to get away for a few days and just to do the outdoor life, walking the trails and going into the both tiny little communities, and they are small communities, but they're really cool. A lot of mom and pop shops and little tiny restaurants, so it's lots of fun.
And little tattoo shops. My daughter and I got matching tattoos when we were in, the tree with one trunk
Yep.
growing out, so Kate and I got those tattoos when we were in Tofino, and
Yeah.
it was, it
I
was
know the
awesome.
the kids were looking around at tattoo shop. Like I'm the least tattooed of our crew. Kelly, Tristan, and Cassidy have twice as many tattoos as I do. They're definitely into it. for sure.
Kelly's not still she's not still teaching, is she? She's got, doing, therapeutic
Yeah,
yoga or
she's a private practice in counseling. I think she's probably about 4 year. Well, I've been out for, I think she's about 4 years into her private practice. So she retired from teaching. I think it was like 21 years in 21 years in New West. And now both girls have taken over. Both the girls are at their teaching at their elementary school in New Westminster. Their aunt is the librarian. Their aunt's brother-in-law is the principal. One of their babysitters is one of the teachers there. So yeah, it's pretty amazing when you get to teach in the school that you went to.
wow, that's great with that kinda root system set up right
Yeah,
there.
no, it's incredible. We're fortunate because both girls decided to settle down in New Westminster, so they're less than a mile away from us. So we can walk there, drive there, bike there, whatever it takes. And yeah, they're now living in the full time in the community they grew up in. So it's pretty special.
Awesome. I'm super happy for you all. Like, your mom and dad still being in Red Deer and
Yeah,
the
no, it's
family
great.
growing and you and Kelly still going strong, and, I wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah,
We should maybe talk again when the Oilers and LA meet again in the playoffs.
it'll probably happen again for sure, for sure. Love to do it. This has been
Yeah.
amazing. This has been amazing.
This has been great to catch up with you,
Yeah,
Bill. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
All right, Terry, that's been a real pleasure.
Reluctantly.
This podcast reluctantly sponsored by homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals, and thompsonmortgages.com. They take care of the financials. You search for your perfect home. If you're searching for a home in the Edmonton area, please use both of these fine sponsors.
Reluctantly.